Hey up!
Right, I better just stop this video here and explain. As you can see, the focus is a bit soft. I initially set up for filming this video and it started raining really heavily. I use a professional grade camera which unfortunately isn't waterproof, so I had to quickly get my camera inside and get it dried out. Now, initially I thought this was a focus issue because I know I checked the focus and it was fine, which had me scratching my head a little bit, but I think what has happened, there's been enough moisture inside the camera that as the camera body has heated up in use, it's fogged up one of the rear lens elements in the lens setup. So yeah, it's not ideal because it means that there's not enough definition there for me to be able to crop in at certain sort of stages to show you in more detail what I'm doing. As I say, it's not ideal, as obviously because of the nature of this video I couldn't go back and re-record it. At the end of the day, it's mainly about what I've got to say in this video rather than showing you. The issue did sort of resolve itself as time went on, but unfortunately it has spoiled most of the footage that I filmed, which, yeah, there's not a lot I can do about it, except provide my apologies. Right, golden opportunity here, as long as the weather holds out. The Himalayan 450 is due to go back sometime in the next week. I'm not quite sure yet. I'm just waiting for an email. You know, it's been ridden exclusively in bad weather all the time that I've had it. It's looking a bit worse for wear, and I always like to return the press bikes back in the same condition that they came to me in. You know, I don't like the idea of the garage staff that look after the fleet having to spend an entire day on a bike just because I can't be bothered to clean it. Not the way I work. Now, the opportunity that this bike has given me is matte paintwork. Now, actually, this is not matte paintwork. This is a satin finish paintwork. You don't actually get full, flat matte paintwork on automotive, you know, used in automotive painting, because that would be like painting something with blackboard paint. It would just be an awful mess to look after. It is actually a satin finish. Now, a lot of people buy what they call matte painted bikes because they're under the illusion that they're easier to look after than gloss paintwork, because of course, you know, it's already a mattified paint finish, so you know, you don't have to wax it or anything. And then usually once they've owned these bikes for a month or two, they start creeping into the comment sections on various videos that I've made over the years asking me how to look after it, because the idea that matte paintwork is easier to look after than gloss paintwork is a myth. It's actually much more difficult to look after if you want to maintain it in factory fresh condition. Now, if you're thinking of buying a matte painted motorcycle, or you know, maybe even a car, the best advice I can give you if you want to keep it in factory fresh condition is make sure that you pick it up on a dry day, take it straight home, don't go anywhere else with it, put it straight in the back of the garage, cover it over with a decent quality motorcycle cover or car cover, and don't ever touch it again. That's the only way you're ever going to preserve it. The problem with matte paintwork is it's exactly the same paintwork that you will get on a gloss painted vehicle. It's just treated with a matting agent to stop the shine from forming as it sets. The problem with this is any abrasion, whether it be from your hands, from using a drying towel, from the clothes while you're riding the bike, any contact with anything will eventually, over time, start to form shiny patches on the paintwork, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about that because it's just braiding away gently that surface and shining it up. We all know how that works. It's a big problem for these vehicles. So what I'm going to do today is a non-contact cleaning method, and this is the best advice that I can give you. Some people are probably not going to like it. I'm going to be using a power washer. Now, this is the Muck Off Mark 1 motorcycle power washer. This comes with a special lance attachment which is safe for use on motorcycles and bicycles. I think they're on to Mark 2 or Mark 3 now, but this is one of the original Mark 1s. I think the lances are the same and the power output's the same. They've just redesigned the unit slightly. So that is perfectly safe for using on a motorcycle. In essence, the way the lance has been designed, it's more gentle than just a straight hose pipe. And I know people say you shouldn't be using hose pipes on bikes, but you know, look at what it does when you're outside on a motorcycle. If it can't cope with that, manufacturers shouldn't be selling them. Bikes get wet. They have to be waterproof to some degree, and these units are designed not to compromise that waterproofing. So let's just get that out of the way. What I'm also going to be using today is Autobrite Direct's Magifoam, because we want to be touching this motorcycle, especially the paintwork, as little as possible. We may have to use some of their Extreme Performance motorcycle cleaner. We'll suck it and see. We'll see how it goes with that. I'm hoping I don't have to. Now, in the final stages, we're going to be using their ceramic Magiseal, which again, it doesn't require you touching it, the motorcycle, rubbing it in, polishing it off, anything like that. This stuff lasts for easily 3 months. I mean, I've tested it on cars outdoors and it's exceeded 4 months, so it's good stuff. It's certainly going to get you through a winter. It's a ceramic sealant which protects the paintwork from contaminants, from rainwater, and stops dirt ingress, which is important with these sort of paints because they do have the facility to soak up dirt to some extent. So that will be the final stage, and instead of drying it off with a drying cloth, what I will actually be doing is just using a blower to dry the bike off again, so that I'm touching it and rubbing the paintwork as little as possible. So let's get on with it. Now, there's no need for me to wet this motorcycle down because we've just had a pretty heavy shower which has well wetted the bike out. What I'm going to be using to apply the Magifoam is Autobrite Direct's new foaming lance, or snow foam lance. Really nice quality piece of kit actually. I'm quite impressed with it, and half the cost of the other one that I reviewed some months ago. I can't remember the name of it now. I will be using that actually for putting the final coating on. It's just to make it easier for me, so I'm not having to swap and clean containers in between. It would have been handy if I'd had a second container for this one, but I don't. So right, let's get on with it. Oops, if I turn it on. Now, what this Magifoam is, it's basically just a neutral, a pH neutral soap, which the way it's applied, it's designed to cling onto the paintwork for as long as possible, and it's not having much trouble because I don't think there was any protective coatings on this paintwork at all, so it's literally just sitting there for a moment. This prolongs the contact time between the soap and the paintwork so that it gently lifts dirt off the paintwork without you having to agitate it or scrub it. And then as it gradually slides off, it takes that dirt with it, and because you're not using abrasion to remove it and it's lubricated by the soap, that dirt just slides off without causing any damage, or at least that's the philosophy behind the way it works. I can't dispute that. It does seem to work pretty well. So we're going to leave that for 5 to 10 minutes, and then we're going to come back and rinse it off with the motorcycle lance. Now, I used to be opposed to the use of these snow foams because previously they used to use a very aggressive alkaline based cleaning agent, which, that's okay for HGVs and tractors and stuff like that, but it's not good for fine automotive paintwork. It was pretty much a glorified version of road traffic film remover, which is heavily used in the trade, but it's not good for your paintwork. As I've said, they're now a pH balanced soap, so it won't cause any damage. This has had just over 10 minutes, so I'm going to put the motorcycle lance onto the gun itself. It's very gentle. It looks vicious, but it isn't. It's very gentle. We're going to rinse that off, and what that will do is all dirt that's now been bound up in that foam will just be rinsed off, taking the dirt with it. Right, there we go. I mean, it's cleaned 95% of the dirt off. I'm quite pleased with that. There are just one or two areas that I think would benefit from a little bit of the extreme bike cleaner. This works in a very similar way to the snow foam, to be honest. It's a long contact detergent that just dissolves the grime. I'm not actually sure whether that's a scratch. Not using as much of this as you probably would use ordinarily if you were just using it straight. But it does need just a little bit on it to hit those heavily soiled areas that where the dirt's just stuck to it basically and is a bit reluctant to move. Now it's not so bad on a day like today, where it's not particularly warm, it's not windy, but it's important that you don't allow this stuff to dry out. If you do, just re-wet it with another application, but give it 4 or 5 minutes to do its job, and then we'll just rinse it off again with the lance, ready for the final stage. Right, one thing I have done while I've been waiting for this cleaner to do its stuff, I have just quickly cleaned the chain and sprockets with Auto Bright's chain and sprocket degreaser. Because of the wet weather, a lot of the old lubricant had been washed off and there was a little bit of evidence of rust on the chain, so I've just quickly scrubbed that off so that I can rinse it while I'm rinsing this cleaner off. So we'll get on with it. Yeah, I forgot to mention this chain and sprocket cleaner is water based, so it does require a water wash off afterwards. They're actually my favourite type of degreasers rather than the solvent ones that can give you a bit of a headache while you're using them. So yeah, that's most of it rinsed off, just got the rear mudguard to do and everything's looking very clean. Right, so that's the cleaning done. We've got this bike squeaky clean without actually touching it. It's a total non-contact method, and it has come up brilliantly. Really pleased with that. So now we'll get on to the really magic part, and that's the ceramic Magiseal. So just give me a moment. Right, I'm back. Right, this is a ceramic infused weather protectant, which coats the paintwork. It's really clever the way it works. As I say, I'm using the MJJC foam cannon for this, just to save time swapping between equipment. Which it actually, the way the nozzle fastens on, it tends to swivel, which isn't ideal, so it's at an odd angle anyway. It is what it is. So just get a... And what we're going to do with this is put it on and then immediately rinse it off, and the results for this stuff are usually fantastic. What I am a bit concerned about is it might put a slight gloss on the paintwork, but it's not permanent. 3-4 months and it'll have washed off completely. So as long as you don't try, buffing it off with something, it's not permanent and it won't sort of alter the finish of the paintwork long term. So I'll get on with it anyway, because we need to do it while it's still wet. The beauty of this stuff is that it gets absolutely everywhere, so you're coating the areas of the frame that normally you can't easily get at. It's an all-over, all-in-one application. Right, so that's the bike thoroughly coated. Now we just rinse it off. As you can see, not used much. Out of a full litre properly mixed up, probably get to do both of our cars at least twice each, and a few motorcycles in between, so it's really economical stuff to use in real life. Right, hopefully the results should be instant. Let's see. As you can see, the water just instantly beads up and runs off, so that's protection that will last at the very least 3 months. I've tested it on cars outside, exposed to the elements 24/7, and I've got almost 4 months out of it in the past over winter. The big determining factor is strong sunlight is obviously going to break it down quicker, but I've tried it over the winter and I've got up to 4 months out of it, so it's good stuff. So that's it. It's up to you how often you do this, but this method using those chemicals, and I'll leave links in the video description down below, are going to make the cleaning of your Matt motorcycle and the overall preservation of its finish much easier, at a cost, because to kit yourself out with everything that you need, you're probably looking at about £250, including the chemicals. Now, don't get me wrong, this is not just for matte paintwork. This actually works better on gloss paintwork, so you can use it on any motorcycle. It's just, you know, this I think is the gold standard of motorcycle cleaning and preservation using a non-contact method. It's all down to what your bank account can stand. Well, what I'm going to do now is just get a blower and, again, dry the bike off without touching it. So we've got no abrasion polishing up that paintwork. And I'm going to get on with that now. Jesus. I don't know whether you can see that, but the water with this coating on literally just rolls off the paintwork, so it makes drying it one of these really easy. Yeah, we've got quite a few water traps on these boxes on retrospect. Should probably take those off to dry them, but you know, I've done what I've done. Actually, this method's brought that up really clean, and again the water's beading up really nicely on those boxes, so it's done a good job. I think I maybe should have just taken them off for ease of drying the bikes. There's water traps everywhere that just continue to keep dripping water. Right, so that's the bike clean and, I don't know, 97% dried out. What I would normally do now is just dress the engine with a protectant, which I'll do in a moment. I've dried the wheels off reasonably well, although a bike like this has got so many nooks and crannies that water is just continuing to drip from everywhere. So what I'll do now is I'll start the engine up and just let engine heat dry up any areas that are still harbouring water. I'll let that run for 5 minutes or so to heat up, and then we'll come back. Right, so that's the bike dried out. I've allowed it to cool down a little bit. Just time to dress the engine up now with some Silcoline Pro Prep. The thing is, the coating that we've just put on, I don't think it's heat resistant, not to the degree that will be required for an engine. So this Pro Prep just provides a non-stick surface to last it through until its next wash sometime in the future. So that returns the engine back to a nice dark black. I will treat some other components on the bike as well, just to make it look nice and presentable for when it goes back. I've re-lubed the chain. I dried it out with the bike dryer. I've re-lubed the chain with an all-weather chain lube. One final thing that I will need to do before I put the bike away or ready for collection is just to wipe down the discs, just to make sure that any of those chemicals that we've used don't interfere with brake operation. We don't want that. So I will clean the discs with either a disc cleaner or, more than likely, pre-paint wipe, because it's cheaper and more effective. Right, so that's the brake discs cleaned up, the engine and all the black work dressed and protected. The bike's ready to go back now, and I have to say I'm really pleased with the way this bike's come on. I had my doubts, to be honest, but yeah, those chemicals from Auto Brake Direct have done a really good job. I mean, the initial investment is quite high. You're going to need a motorcycle appropriate jet washer. The bike dryer is entirely up to you. I'm not quite sure what that Blaster Sidekick costs these days. I think they were about £100 5 years ago when I got that one. You're looking at another £40 for a snow foam gun. Yeah, the initial investment's quite high with those chemicals on top of that, but then it's just quite literally you know, replenishing your chemicals in the end. I think altogether you're looking at £30–40 for all the chemicals that I've used. You'll get multiple bike cleans and treatments out of those before you need to replace them. You know, it costs what it's cost. Nobody ever said that keeping a motorcycle or running a motorcycle was going to be cheap. We know it's not cheap. But if you have, especially if you have a Matt Paintwork motorcycle and you want to keep it in factory fresh condition, this really, in my opinion, is the only way to do it. I have tried polishes and treatments in the past that are designed to be used on Matt Paintwork. If I'm honest, I was never really impressed with the results, and the thing is, you're applying it and buffing it off with a cloth which over time is going to make your matte paintwork more and more shiny. So yeah, I mean, it's entirely up to the individual which way they want to do it. This is the way I've shown you. It's one to consider. I think the results are quite excellent, to be quite honest. It has come up better than I expected it to, because this bike, I know these bikes have a rough time. A lot of the press take them off road, they get a complete hammering, and it's not uncommon, from what I can gather, for substantial damage to be done to these bikes, which requires Royal Enfield to replace a few panels here and there before they can go out again. It's quite an expensive pastime for Royal Enfield, these particular bikes. And there are one or two scuffs and scratches on the paintwork. Again, there's nothing you can do with that. On a matte paint, you cannot polish it out or in any way try to correct it, because you'll just make a glossy patch on the paintwork which looks even worse than the original scratch. So yeah, those who fancy the idea of a matte paintwork bike because they have this notion that it's easier to keep, it isn't. If you're going to look after it properly, it's going to be more expensive and more time involved, although I think this only took an hour to do, roughly. I didn't actually time when I started. It is going to be more time intensive looking after it, because you have to stop that paintwork from getting bright patches on it, and the only way to do it, as far as I'm concerned, is a totally non-contact method if you want to retain the finish for as long as is humanly possible. I mean, at the end of the day, clothes rubbing against the tank, etc., they're going to have the same effect as time goes on. Nothing you can do about it. But no, matte paintwork is not easier to look after than gloss paintwork. Give me gloss paintwork any day. It's far more suitable for an object that moves around at high speed. Right, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this and my other videos. I really do appreciate it. I hope this answers the question for some people, because I do get a lot of comments from people that are struggling with matte paintwork. You know, they buy these bikes because they think they're low maintenance, and then they realise that the paintwork gets dirty, it's difficult to clean the dirt off, and then they want to protect it to stop the dirt sticking to it, but then they're stuck as to what to use to protect the paintwork. You know, it's a vicious circle, and then they end up coming onto my cleaning videos in the comments section and asking advice. This is the most comprehensive video that I've done on dealing with matte paintwork. I hope that it answers all the questions that those people have had. If you've enjoyed this video and found it useful, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber. The sun's coming out now. I really do appreciate it. It helps the channel out. The other thing, if you would like to leave a tip of some sort, my Patreon page or the super thanks button down below can facilitate that. There's no pressure, but the option is there if you would like to use it. I'm of course going to be back next week, so until then, please ride safely, and I'll see you soon.